Hi, welcome to my craft room, session 4 for the beginner stamper. Today we're talking about designer series paper. The initials for that is DSP. Plus we're going to include some punches in that. Whoever designed this everyday enchantment packet of paper that is now in celebration, my hat's off to you. I love this paper. It is beautiful. But before we get started in that, I want to show the beginner stamper. You know, when you first start, you don't have very much, and there may be some of you out there that have limited resources. So I want to give you just a little suggestion of something that I have used in the past. Yep, you're right. This is junk mail. These are just old envelopes that come in the mail. And you know, the cool thing about these is each one of these are different. Just open these up, and this is great background paper. Lots of different things you can work and use these. Some of them you have very limited space, but be creative. Start where you are. We all have to start. The neat part about this particular packet of paper is it is in celebration, so that means with a $50 purchase you can select this packet of I'm going to try to show you just some basic formulas and using the same idea, but in just changing the dimensions of your paper. This is just a really simple layout, and you can see I have the dimensions here. This is a standard size card, 8.5 by 5.5. We're just angling it in a different way instead of normally you see me have it like so. We have our paper that measures 3 by 5.5. I start in the center. I look at both sides and I try to match those up so that they look like they're just about the exact same distance in. Punch, move this over, and this is where it begins to punch. So when you line this up, you want to make sure that you have that back far enough so that if you bring it out too far, you're going to miss punching. So now line those up and punch. Bring it back over this way. And what I like to do is I like to see exactly where that has ended. Then I slide it in a couple of scallops and make sure that this is butted all the way up to this back portion. And punch. And there we are. Next we're going to distress. And when I distress, I like to do it on a scrap of paper. I like to keep my work surface clean. We're also going to be distressing. We're working with the vanilla cardstock because that's what complements these colors in this everyday enchantment. For distressing, I like the river rock and the crumb cake. So get those all ready, and we've already talked about using a sponge, but I'm just going to review that with you again. We want to start with our lightest color, which would be our river rock. So I'm going to circle, and then I'll slide this back just a titch, or let's start with the card base, okay? And this will come to about, this designer paper is going to come up about that high, so I'm going to go down a little bit below that, working in a circular motion. Now I'm going to flip my sponge over, and I'm going to use the crumb cake. Be sparing with this because this is a stronger, darker color. So now I am sponging much lighter. But the combination of these two colors really gives this a nice aging. Now let's do this. Starting with the lighter of the two, flip my sponge back over, river rock first. And this time this is distressed and this is already, so I just need to do the other half. To make sure that my colors blend together well, I'm going over the distressing that is already on this designer paper. Okay, now flip my sponge over and pick up the crumb cake. Remember, go a little bit lighter handed with this. Another tip is keep your fingers right, this is more delicate on these corners, so you want to keep your fingers, you may get a little bit of it on your fingers, but you're wash and wear, it'll come off. But keep your fingers right up where you're working so that your designer paper does not bend. have any babies at my house, but I buy Huggies baby wipes because they are awesome for keeping your hands clean. And when you're being creative, you want to make sure that you keep your work surface clean and your hands clean. I'm going to work with this Calypso Coral, also from Sale-a-bration. This comes in a packet of this along with the Lucky Limeade and a packet of brads. When I work with my ribbons or my baker's twine, I like to work off of the spool. That way you do not have the waste. Basically, we just need enough to extend off of here to tie a knot. So think about how much space it's going to take. That way you won't be wasteful. Keep this straight as you go around this designer paper. Bring it back around. We're going to go around there 3 times. There's 1. Keep it straight. Now I am bringing the 2 loose pieces into the middle. I am wrapping this, catching all 3 of my strands of ribbon. And now I'm just going to tie this off. Next, you can see that the strands are together. So we want to separate those. Just pull those apart, take your 2 end ones, leave the middle one. And if you wanted to do the same thing down here, you can, or you can leave it together, either way. Sometimes variety looks kind of cool. Okay, and there we go. Now we're going to adhere that on to our card base. I chose to use Just For You out of the Teeny Tiny Wishes. Stamping that on the vanilla. And I'm using the large oval. Always stamp, then punch. It's much easier. And because I'm going to have a brad over to the left side, I want to make sure that I leave plenty of space for that. So you can see that I've left this open. Next, I want to punch out with my scallop oval. I want to punch out my background with that. Take the handheld punch, and if you have trouble seeing things, once you get the punch in your hand, sometimes it's a little more difficult to see it. Just take a pencil and make a little mark there so it's much easier for you to zero in on that. And you want to punch it, then release it and go beside it and punch it a second time. The shaft on this is pretty large. And you have several to select from. I think this goes so beautifully with that paper. And then fold it. Now I'm going to use half a dimensionals, and I showed y'all how to do that before. Put one right where that brad is. And one on the end. Got to do a little distressing on this, so let's do that before I move on. This still has ample amount of ink on it. And you can almost tell, at least I can, this is River Rock. I can tell the shading of this. And now we're ready. I put this onto the Very Vanilla. This one I did onto a piece of designer paper. Either one would be really, really attractive. I want to show you the difference. I did this so that you could just make a choice. That's if you followed through with the Very Vanilla.